the Portland Theosophical Society's Zoom presentation of unity, gems, and stories and traditions from around the world. Sue Prescott is going to be our presenter today. And we all want to feel loved and have a sense of unity with our families and significant people in our lives. Today, Sue will help us examine spiritual traditions from around the world and consider teachings that can help us, such as Ho'oponopono. There you go. That's tough, and then from the Polynesian culture and the Ubuntu from the African tradition. Sue holds a MSW degree and is a lifelong theosophist and therapist. In today's talk, she melds the principles of psychological and therapeutic change with spiritual growth. She's a national speaker for the Theosophical Society in America and is the author of Realizing the Self Within, which is an overview of the concepts of spirituality that can be applied to the relationships and self-improvement. It has recently been republished. And Sue, did you want to hold your book up?
Sure.
There you go. So join us now as we're inspired by beautiful stories, rituals, and beliefs that can help us overcome the sense of separation with others and live in tune with the oneness of our inner spiritual self. I give you Sue Prescott.
So thank you, Ron. Wonderful introduction, and so happy to be here. So starting off, let's go from this following quote from the Holy Bible expresses the importance of unity. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. That same thought is expressed by Annie Besant, who was an early theosophical writer and orator, giving talks around the world. She wrote the following beautiful poem. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. In theosophical terminology, unity is defined as the Atman, and this is also called the universal spirit. To clarify a little bit more about what the Atman is, it is depicted in the following chart of the levels of consciousness within the human being. And the Atman represents the field of unity, or the infinite divine, or God, or Allah, as the highest aspect of the spiritual self. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and the Sthula Sharira is Sanskrit for the physical body and what I call the body-mind. And the body-mind is our autonomic nervous system, which makes our heart beat faster when we run. And it includes the protective mechanisms of the body, like when you pull your hand away from a hot stove. It also activates the defense mechanisms of fight, flight, and freeze through the amygdala. And that's useful in fleeing from a threat, like getting under a table if there's an earthquake, but not when we're interacting with a family member necessarily. Our defenses can sometimes get a hold of us, and we may not communicate as well as we might want. So then next from the physical body is part of the physical, the Linga Sharira, and that's the etheric double, and it extends maybe an inch or so off of the body. Then prana is the vitality within the body, or chi or ki, it's also called. And then kama, that's the emotions. And so the emotions with the mind, so manas is the mind. If we have the emotions working with us with our mind, it's emotion mind or kama manas. But then we have buddhi manas, with buddhi, the field of intuition. And that's where we would get our higher reasoning or intuitional insights. And then just to make it easy, there is a division between the spiritual higher self and that's the Atman and the intuition, and then Buddhi Manas, the higher mind, and then the personal everyday self, Kama Manas, or our emotions, and then the physical body and body mind. And just a comment, there is no your Atman or my Atman. It's all one Atman. Everything is a part of the Atman or of the infinite divine, but we each have a spiritual higher self that we're working to incorporate more and more in our lives. The Atman in everyone can be thought of light from the sun. One ray of sun shines on each of us as the Atman is in everyone. Just like white light can be broken down to all the 7 colors of the prism, of the spectrum, the Atman has all 7 levels of consciousness within it. Each ray of sunlight comes from the same sun, just as we all come from the same source, the Atman. And the Atman within us is why we recognize the unity when we experience it or hear about it. We all have that same awareness of it. And that's the wonderful part about the spiritual self. This oneness of life is also found within the human body. All the different organs and cells work together as one human being. You can see this in the pictures of the digestive system in the body, as well as all the nerves. Taking it a little further, 2 hands may appear separate if they're considered alone. One hand may even feel superior to the other, such as if we're right-handed. But both hands are important. They seem unconnected unless you look at them from the wider standpoint and see they're attached to the body. Then 2 hands can work together to scoop up water. Another example of unity are the fingers of your hand. Each finger is separate, and the thumb may feel superior from being the strongest, or the pointer finger may feel it's most important because it can write or point things out. Again, from a wider unified stance, each finger is needed for the hand to work well. As in the baby's fingers, which are holding onto the parent's fingers, or the whole hand grasping the apple. Other examples of unity include the little ducks swimming with their mother, and then the baby duck on the back of the mama duck, or of the monkeys grooming each other, or looks like a mother, baby, and grandmother, or helping someone, maybe the sister helping her brother, or the older cowboy helping the younger one, or grandparents. And you got to give the little boy credit for pushing his grandmother on that little toy. So, or also merging in traffic, letting someone in. It's a perfect example of how we work together as one. So I'd like to share a story that was reported in the newspaper, the Seattle Times, several years ago. It's about the Special Olympics, which is an athletic competition for children and adults with intellectual or physically different abilities. In the story, 9 children were ready to run a foot race. The starting gun was fired and the children began to sprint. Right away, one child stumbled and fell and started crying. The other 8 children, I'm going to choke up, just excuse me. The other 8 children running forward heard the cries and stopped. They all came back to help. One bent down and kissed the injured child. 2 other children helped him stand up. Then all 9 children linked their arms together and crossed the finish line as a group. The crowd, in admiration for the compassion shown by the contestants, stood up and applauded, and the children jumped for joy in response and hugged one another. And the crowd's cheering lasted for over 5 minutes. And I just love that story. The unity is also shown in friendship. Mencius, the Chinese philosopher, spoke of unity in friendship as this way. Friendship is one mind in two bodies. You feel so close to your friend and so understood that you're like one person. Zeno, the Greek philosopher, said the same thing in What is a Friend? Another I. Again, the oneness of friendship is truly felt. We feel completely at ease and accepted by our friend. These pictures show the unity in friendship, which is not easy to put into words. On the surface, it looks like they're just two people interacting, nothing more. But when we experience the closeness of friendship ourselves, we know what it's like to feel that oneness. It's a mystery that can't be defined. And you don't feel like you're two people. You feel so close as if you're one. The mystery is reflected in the following American haiku. So a haiku is a Japanese 17-syllable poem, but the syllables can vary in English. Carrots and peas in a pot on the stove. We eat and they are a part of us. Weren't we all along? Again, we have the mystery. We are one with the carrots and peas in our minds when we're at the store and buying them, or when we're cooking them. Then when we eat them, we're one physically. But most importantly, we are one at the level of the Atman all along. This unity is true spirituality. It's reflected in the meaning of the word, which comes from the Latin root spiro, meaning breath. This is the one breath of which we all are a part. We have the same breath of God, or the Atman, within us. Einstein, the physicist and mathematician who gave us E equals mc squared, understood the unity underlying everything in the world and described how easy it is to forget it. He said, a human being is part of the whole called by us the universe, a part limited in space and time. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and his feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for him, restricting him to his personal desires and to affection to a few persons nearest to him. His task must be to free himself from this prison by widening his circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So Einstein said, this optical delusion makes us feel separate, and the way to overcome it is to widen our compassion to all living creatures of the earth. Realizing this oneness is also described by Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas. This gospel is part of the Gnostic Gospels that were found in 1945 in Egypt at Nag Hammadi, and they aren't included in the Bible because they were discovered so much later. When you make the two one, and when you make the inner as the outer, and the outer as the inner, and the above as the below, and when you make the male and female one in the same, then you shall enter the kingdom. So we can enter the kingdom of God, so to speak, when we realize this oneness. H.P. Blavatsky, one of the founders of the Theosophical Society, phrased it this way: very few are the strong swimmers who reach the light. He who gets there must have ceased to be a number and become all numbers. He must have forgotten the illusion of separation and accepted only the truth of collective individuality. Again, to reach the light of the divine, we must see the oneness of all humanity. So moving to Australia, the indigenous culture there recognizes a unity of all, and the people believe that nothing is separate from anything else, especially nature and the environment. So you can see the top right picture is Uluru, a big gigantic mass of rock from the ground. And about 20 years ago, I visited Australia and spoke to the indigenous people there and learned about their culture. At the time, they referred to themselves as Aborigines, and this saying was widespread: happy to be an Aborigine. Now they may refer to themselves as indigenous. What they felt was an affinity with nature, and the next quote refers to the tribesman who felt he was literally part of the land. He said, "I am the land. It is my backbone. I stand straight, happy, and proud because of the land. I can paint, dance, create, and sing as my ancestors did before me." So this is also demonstrated in this book, The Aboriginal Gift, which I got when I was in Australia. And in it, an Indigenous schoolgirl was asked to draw a picture of herself. And she painted a picture of a beautiful landscape. And it depicted the part of the country that she came from, but she did not draw herself in the picture. So this also reflects the viewpoint that nature and the human being are one. So you can see Uluru again in the center there, and the massive rock coming out of the land, and the Australian art with dots. And I am at the library because I have problems with internet at home, but I have a boomerang just like the one in the picture with all the dots, and I did forget to bring it. So this unity is felt in the indigenous culture, and it's shown in the attitude that says there are no barriers or separation between one person and everyone else, no in or out group, or we or they, just an all-encompassing us. Another quote from the indigenous Australian wisdom: "I am part of every other, and every other is part of me." So these men are playing the didgeridoo, which is a wonderful low-pitch resonating sound that's just wonderful to hear. It's an instrument made from a hollowed-out tree trunk, and when the person blows into it, they vibrate their lips. And they can make a continuous sound because of the special way they take air into their cheeks and store it there. And so when they blow it out, slowly they can sustain the sound. So I talked to a man who played it, and he demonstrated how he took in the air. And it was absolutely cool to watch, and such a wonderful tone. And probably many of you have heard it. Each person is treated equally with respect. Everyone is equal around the fire. Now, there's no fire in this picture, but you can see the sense of belonging. One belongs by merely existing. The interdependence and strength as a group is shown in this quote. If you stay closely united, you will stay strong as the tree in the middle of a bushfire. The leaves may be scorched, but the tough bark is only scarred. Inside the tree, the sap is still flowing and the roots are still strong. If you are united like the tree that will endure the flames, you will always have the power to be reborn. So shifting to the continent of Africa, there's a word that represents unity, Ubuntu, and it means humanity. And it refers to the principle of brotherhood and sisterhood, where people feel a kinship and live together cooperatively. The proverb, I am because we are, perfectly describes Ubuntu. It is the principle that individuals exist because of the universal bond of sharing and sense of community. And it comes from the Zulu and Xhosa cultures. So you may have heard me say the word Xhosa. Now, there's a click sound with the K. So the X is that the K sound, K, but with the click on the side of your cheek. And I learned it when I attended the Parliament of the World's Religions there in South Africa in 1999. And at one of the breaks, there were several of us sitting around a grassy amphitheater, and I heard a person using the African language that included the clicks. So I started chatting with him and learned he knew 7 languages, and he showed me how to say the click sound, or the Xhosa. Let me see if I can get it. Xhosa, Xhosa. There, I said it pretty well. It was really good when I was in Africa. So that's a cool name for their the tribe or their culture. And Ubuntu is the view of life that says we exist only by the help of others. We are alive because we're born from our mothers. We survive through the help of our families and communities. And our communities exist from the work of those who came before us, our ancestors. Ubuntu refers to the support and caring that people give to one another. With Ubuntu, everyone is in. There is no one who isn't accepted by the group. And I just love this flower with all those legs, those cute children, and how they made that perfect circle. Just like in Australia, everyone is equal around the fire. So I couldn't find a picture in Australia with this saying, but it's in both cultures. Ubuntu is the concept of giving to others what we would want in return, and it incorporates a golden rule, doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. And it recognizes that everyone is deserving of love and acceptance as being part of the one human family. This is also depicted in the African adage, the blood in all of us is the same. So the picture on the right shows the red blood corpuscle. Oh, I'm not even saying it right still. Corpuscles of the blood. Then the meaning of the proverb is illustrated by the continent of Africa with the red blood cells in it. And when I found that picture, I was just delighted to show that. It's just a very universal symbol there. So Ubuntu stands for solidarity, where people work collectively for the common good. This is collective fingers and means that each person makes a contribution for the whole. Ubuntu in action means shared work, justice, and equality with respect for all. and a council of elders oversees the management of this tribe, and people operate from a sense of collective trust. No one overpowers another. Disputes are resolved so both can feel a winner. And this picture is Papua New Guinea, the tribesmen. So I'd like to move to Sudan in Africa, and the story, the sheikh and his 10 sons. Once upon a time, there was a sheikh who ruled a prosperous country. He was very old and about to die. Over the course of his life, he had raised 10 sons, and he wanted to teach them a lesson about cooperation. So he asked his sons to come and meet with him, and each son was to bring 2 camel driving sticks. As they stood before their dying father, he asked each son to break one of their sticks. They complied and each broke a stick. Then the sheikh asked the youngest son to tie the unbroken sticks together and in a bundle. Then he asked each of the sons to try to break the tied bundle of sticks, and no one was able to do it. Even the strongest son could not break it. So the father said, "My sons, I'm dying. Your oldest brother will now carry on my duties. Serve him and help him serve our people. You must all work together to accomplish this. My sons, you are like these sticks. If each of you stands alone and doesn't pay attention to the others, you will be as easy for an enemy to break as a single stick. But if you band together and be as the fingers of one hand, you will be unbreakable, just like this bundle of sticks." This expression of unity is also seen in the poetry of Jalaluddin Rumi, the Sufi mystic in the Islamic religion. I love this poem. A little I, you, he, she, we. In the garden of mystic lovers, these are not true distinctions. So there's no separation between people. So moving to North America, the Native Americans feel the same unity with the natural world as the indigenous Australians and Africans. Chief South of the Suquamish Native American tribe, and that's where Seattle got its name, referred to the unity of all that lives as the web of life. In 1854, he gave this response to the President of the United States and his inquiry about purchasing land from the Native Americans. His response was written down by Ted Perry, a journalist. The great chief in Washington sends word that he wishes to buy our land. How can you buy our land or sell the sky or the warmth of the land, the swiftness of the antelope? The idea is strange to us. If we do not own the freshness of the air and the sparkle of the water, how can you buy them from us? If we sell our land, you must remember and teach your children that the rivers are our brothers and yours, and you must henceforth give the rivers the kindness you would give any brother. The air is precious to the red man, for all things share the same breath, the beasts, the trees, and man. They are all of the same breath. So you can hear the one breath, spiro, from spirituality. So he goes on, all things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. There's a lot of wisdom in that. Again, the web of life, so inspiring. It's also depicted in this Native American prayer to Grandmother Earth. The two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, and all that move on you are your children. With all beings and all things, we shall be as relatives, just as we are related to you, O Mother. And this is the Atman. We're all one. So moving to Hawaii, there's a rich culture of living in harmony with nature and with all living beings. An example is the practice of Ho'oponopono, the ritual of reconciliation and forgiveness. It comes from the root ho'o, which means to bring about, and pono, which refers to being correct or correcting or being proper or bringing to a perfect order, a sense of well-being. Traditionally, Ho'oponopono is led by healing priests, kahuna, among family members of a person who's physically ill. And you can see the leader, Morna Nalamaku Simeona, the healer there. And so people may come together for several days for a cleansing so that the person who's ill can be healed. And it may take several days. So the Hawaiian culture knows the power of one's thoughts, and it's believed that wrongdoing and anger cause illness. So this ritual involves confession and repentance, and from the person who is ill, and even restitution may be made. And it's quite a lengthy process where everyone gets to say what they feel. It might take a week at the location. So through prayer and meditation, Ho'oponopono appeals to the divine creator to bring about a change in the person's health that is one that is filled with love and gratitude and forgiveness. And it's a process of healing. And the liturgy is divine creator, Father, Mother, Son as one. If I, my family, relatives, or ancestors have offended you in thoughts, words, or deeds from the beginning of our creation to the present, we ask your forgiveness. So you can see how broad this goes. Let this cleanse, purify, and release all the negative memories, blocks, and vibrations to transmute these unwanted energies to pure light. And it is done. So that's the liturgy. And basically, it's saying to the divine creator and to the people involved, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And then the response back is, thank you, I love you, I forgive you. So I'd like to share a story about this from Joe Vitale in his book, Zero Limits. And he writes about a doctor, Dr. Len, who supposedly cured a complete ward of criminally insane patients at Hawaii State Hospital through the use of Ho'oponopono. The hospital was so bad, it had a reputation for staff quitting soon after they were hired. So when Dr. Liu came, he started working there, and he didn't see individual patients very much. He just came in cheerfully every day, smiled at the people as he passed by, and reviewed their charts. As Dr. Len read about a patient, he would feel something in his body. an empathetic pain or discomfort. And he started Ho'oponopono by saying, I'm sorry, I love you. He worked on asking forgiveness from the divine and sending that love to the part of himself that felt the patient's distress, as well as to the patients. Pretty soon, a miraculous thing started to happen. The people began acting better and the shackles could be removed. Their medications were reduced and the staff started enjoying coming to work. Eventually, the ward closed. Another example from Joe Vitale demonstrates this process when he received a negative email from someone, and he used Ho'oponopono, saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And he evoked the power of love to heal within himself what was going on with the other person. And within an hour, he received an apology from the person. So how does this work? It's based on the principle that we create our experience of the world in our minds. Take the example of someone going to a party. Each person's reactions will be different. Some may enjoy themselves, others may feel bored, or one might feel kind of sad if an ex-partner is there. The surroundings are the same, but each person's experience is based on their attitude and their approach, and mainly what's going on in their mind. And this shows how we create the world. How we feel is our choice and responsibility. So the teaching is when someone in our lives has a problem, such as a crabby boss or a relative we can't get along with, or a child who is failing in school, how or why this is happening is also our responsibility. It may have originated in past lives or from our own current choices. So Ho'oponopono says that if there is a problem, because we're there with it, it is our creation and our responsibility to heal. So you think of the situation that you're troubled by, and you picture the person or people involved, and you're open to what you did or caused to contribute to the problem, and you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. Now we're going to practice this in a minute with another culture, so from the Indian culture. And there's a wonderful and similar teaching from Paramahansa Yogananda. He was the Indian monk and yogi and guru who founded the Self-Realization Fellowship and wrote the book Autobiography of a Yogi. He taught the peace and harmony technique. So we'll be doing this in a minute. It only takes a minute. And so as I'm describing what we'll do, you can be thinking of someone to pick. So for 45 seconds, we're going to think of someone we have difficulties with, and then we hold that person or situation in our minds. We flood them with light and say to ourselves, may you be filled with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Then the second part, for 15 seconds, we envision ourselves and we fill ourselves with light and say to ourselves, may I be filled with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Now we'll discuss this at the end of the session, but we'll be doing the this technique now. So for 45 seconds, think of someone you have difficulties with. Flood the person with light and say, may you be filled with peace and harmony, peace, and harmony. Flood them with light and say, may you be filled with peace and harmony. Then the second part, for 15 seconds, envision yourself in your mind, fill yourself with light, and say to yourself, may I be filled with peace and harmony, peace and harmony. So you can see it just takes 1 minute. Yogananda says that if we do this 5 times a day, it will change the situation in ways we cannot now imagine. He says that it sometimes works quickly or it may take a bit of time. Nevertheless, it works. And he said doing it 3 or 4 times may work, but 5 times practically never fails. So the following story is about a man who learned a lesson about letting go of judgment and having tolerance for others, and it's called Shoes in Church. I showered and shaved. I adjusted my tie. I got there and sat in a pew just in time. Bowing my head in prayer as I closed my eyes, I saw the shoe of the man next to me touching mine. I sighed. With plenty of room on either side, I thought, why must our shoe soles touch? It bothered me, his shoe touching mine, but it didn't bother him much. A prayer began, Our Father. I thought, this man with the shoes has no pride. They're dusty, worn, even worse, there's holes on the side. Thank you for the blessings, the prayer went on. The shoe man said a quiet amen. I tried to focus on the prayer, but my thoughts were on his shoes again. Aren't we supposed to look our best when we walk through that door? Well, this certainly isn't it, I thought, glancing toward the floor. When the prayer ended and the songs of praise began, the shoe man was certainly loud, sounding proud as he sang. His voice lifted the rafters, his hands were held high. The Lord could surely hear the shoe man's voice from the sky. It was time for the offering, and what I threw in was steep. I watched as the shoe man reached into his pockets deep. I saw what was pulled out, what the shoe man put in. Then I heard a soft clink as silver hits tin. The sermon really bored me to tears, that's no lie. It was the same for the shoe man, for tears fell from his eyes. At the end of the service, as is the custom here, we must greet new visitors and show them good cheer. I felt somehow moved and wanted to meet the shoe man. So after the closing prayer, I reached over and shook his hand. He was old and his hair was truly a mess, but I thanked him for coming, for being our guest. He said, my name's Charlie, and I'm glad to meet you, my friend. There were tears in his eyes, but he had a large, wide grin. Let me explain, he said, wiping his tears. I've been coming here for months, and you're the first to say hi. I know my appearance is not like the rest, but I really do try to always look my best. I always clean and polish my shoes before my very long walk, but by the time I get here, they're dirty and dusty like chalk. my heart filled with pain, and I swallowed to hide my tears. As he continued to apologize for daring to sit so near. He said, when I get here, I know I must look a sight. Excuse me. But I thought if I could touch you, then maybe our souls might unite. I was silent for a moment, knowing whatever I would say would pale in comparison. So I spoke from my heart, not my head. Oh, you've touched me, I said, and taught me in part that the best of any man is what is found in his heart. The rest, I thought, this shoe man will never know, like just how thankful I really am that his dirty old shoe touched my soul. So you can see how this story shows how easy it is to be judgmental of others. And again, how easy it is to be wrong. And it really touches me. So I know you understand that. Again, from Mother Teresa from India, the dedicated Albanian and Catholic nun who said, when she set up housing for the sick and dying, she was asked how we can increase unity and peace in the world. And she says it starts at home. You ask what you can do to promote world peace, go home and love your family. So living as an expression of unity starts wherever we live and wherever we are. This next short story is a beautiful example of unity as shown by a brother's love for his sister. And it's a story of Liza from Dan Millman. Liza was a little girl who suffered from a rare and serious disease. Her only chance of recovery was a blood transfusion from her 5-year-old brother, who had miraculously survived the same disease and had antibodies to combat the illness. The doctor explained the situation to her little brother and asked the boy if he would be willing to give his blood to his sister. He hesitated for a moment before taking a deep breath and said, "Yes, I'll do it if it will save Liza." As the transfusion progressed and with the family all around, he laid in a bed next to his sister and smiled, seeing the color returning to her cheeks. Then the boy's face grew pale as he asked the doctor in a trembling voice, "Will I start to die right away?" Being young, the boy had misunderstood the doctor. He thought he was going to have to give all of his blood to his sister. So this amazing story of love and unity can be an inspiration to us all. And then lastly, the Yoruba religion in Africa, in Nigeria, has a wonderful proverb that sums up how we should treat one another. And you can see the tribesmen and then their deity, Olodumare, there in the picture. And then the wonderful quote, "Gentle character is that which enables the rope of life to stay unbroken in one's hand." So hopefully these stories and quotes of unity have inspired you to live more fully with the awareness that we're all one. Thank you.